Well, hello there.
Hey!
Hey now, friends, lovers. Thank you for joining us. Welcome to 5 Minutes with Robert and Amy Nasir, and we are glad you are here. So glad on this date, February 5th.
You know what, Robert? I'm glad you're here.
I'm glad you're here, too. I'm glad you were there yesterday. Oh, my gosh, what a day.
What a day yesterday was. So good.
Oh, my gosh. Okay, 9 days until Valentine's Day. That's why we're feeling the luff.
Mm-hmm.
Big time. We got to decorate the studio for next weekend. We've already decorated the area. We're also getting ready for Great Lakes Objectivists' next get-together next Saturday.
Yay!
If you are Ayn Rand inclined and in the Southeast Michigan area, you have got to be there or at least reach out to us for more information. But today is February 5th, the 36th day of 2023. You have 329 days left to make this your best year ever. And I do mean that. Make it your best year ever. It is just 323 days until Christmas, 268 until Halloween, but yes, 9 days until Valentine's Day. And we've said it before, if you've got a sweetie, it's time to start planning.
Yeah, and for those of you who are so inclined, keep in mind that Valentine's Day is officially second Halloween. So, FYI.
The gospel according to Amy.
You've got candy. You know, you can dress
That's
up
true.
if you want.
Well, you can get dressed up. That's true.
Right. Well, I mean, I guess there are no children knocking at doors or anything like that. But yeah, I mean, it is both historically are courtship holidays, and yeah, they truly are.
True that. Mm-hmm. True that. So yes, just 9 days left. And again, if you don't have a sweetie, that's fine. Your parents, your daughter, your best friend, whoever it is, spend that day together and plan something fun. Make it good.
And speaking of planning things that are fun and doing good things for yourself, I just want to give a shout out to Petya on Facebook, who reminded us that, yes, a couple days ago was Ayn Rand's Day, or Rand's Day.
Rand's Day.
Rand's Day, according to Harry Binswanger.
Yep.
He was nice enough to put that into motion. And,
yeah, well, the day that she was born, February 2nd.
There are probably thousands upon thousands of people who recognize Rand's Day now, and it's just going to grow exponentially throughout the years. Hallmark is going to pick up on it.
Yep.
They're going to have greeting cards especially for it. You just wait and see another 5 years.
You ARC UK folks, if you're wondering, where was Harry Binswanger's show about Rand's Day? It was actually on the Ayn Rand Impact Live channel, so go to Ayn Rand Institute's YouTube channel to see that. But yes, Rand's Day, I'll talk more about that in a second because I did a show on Rand's Day, had some fun with that. But first and foremost, before we get any deeper into it, I see Jim Ashley is on YouTube. We usually catch him on Facebook Live, the author Jim Ashley, so good to see you there. Folks, chime in. We want to see you in the chat if you're catching us live. If you're catching the podcast afterward, go and read the chat later. They're always fun. Always good stuff. On this date, 1919. 1919, so that must have been 81 years ago? It's so weird. 1919 is actually over 100 years ago. It's 104 years ago when United Artists was created.
That was in the 20th century.
Yes, way back when.
In the 1900s.
And what I didn't know when I looked up, what was that all about? In 1919, Hollywood heavyweights Charlie Chaplin, Mary Pickford, Douglas Fairbanks, and D.W. Griffith, controversial artist there, Birth of a Nation, joined forces to create their own film studio, which they called United Artists Corporation. So it was literally a bunch of artists united. Oh. Yes, and they were around forever. I remember their logo, the UA logo, was always kind of ominous to me when I was a little kid. Something about the way they showed their production codes and stuff. But Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer, MGM, actually acquired the studio in 1981 for a reported $350 million. Of course, that's $1 billion in today's dollars. United Artists does still exist as a film distribution company as part of MGM. So they are still around. So happy birthday to United Artists. Speaking of birthdays, because there was nothing else in history today that I wanted to talk about. A lot of downers. I don't spend a lot of time on that. We'll let other people do that. But birthdays, well, first of all, it is the birth date of William S. Burroughs. That's right. William Seward Burroughs II was born on February 5th, 1914, lived to be the ripe old age of 83, which I wouldn't have expected for a man whose claim to fame is, besides being a writer, that he was addicted to various drugs and narcotics. Different times, different drugs, different parts of his life, and wrote about it. He wrote the worst stuff. Well, he wrote the most curious stuff. The only reason why I even care about William S. Burroughs, and the music aficionados will care about this too, is that he is the one who coined the expression Steely Dan.
Oh,
and,
right.
And I had always heard that. I had heard that Walter Becker and Donald Fagen's band Steely Dan was named after, if you have kids in the room, cover their ears, a steam-powered dildo in his book Naked Lunch. Okay, whatever. You hear that, not because I care about Burroughs, but I'm a big Steely Dan fan. I had never actually found the citation for that before. But it occurred to me now that almost every library has a lending library out there, so you can find almost anything on the internet. If you have a library subscription, the easiest one is search archive.org. Well, in the show notes, so if you look at your description on YouTube or your description on Facebook Live, you will find a link. I don't recommend that you click it, but you will find a link to a copy of Naked Lunch, which will show you that source. It's not safe for work. I mean, it's print. You could obviously bring it up on your work computer, but again, I don't recommend it, but I'd always wondered. So it's interesting to see the original. So enough of that. Happy birthdays to the late William S. Burroughs. But one worth celebrating. It is Hank Aaron's birth date. He was actually with us until 2021.
Wow.
Yeah, 2 years ago. Aged 86. So he lived longer than William Burroughs. No surprise there. It's just an incredible, incredible player. He is still the number 2 home run champion after Barry Bonds. And that's controversial because Barry Bonds, during his 10 years of eligibility, Barry Bonds did not receive the votes needed to be elected to the National Baseball Hall of Fame. He's not a Hall of Famer. And the reason was some of the voters of the Baseball Writers Association of America stated they would not vote for Bonds because he used performance-enhancing drugs. So some of you sports fans will remember the Barry Bonds steroid fiasco. But Hank Aaron, who is still the number 2 home run hitter, boxing legend Muhammad Ali once called Hank Aaron, quote, "the only man I idolize more than myself," unquote. Of course, Muhammad Ali and his characteristic style. For many, Aaron was everything an athlete and a human being should be. Aaron grew up in humble surroundings in Mobile, Alabama. He passed through the sandlots with brief stops in the Negro Leagues. Do we remember when baseball leagues were segregated? And the minor leagues before he settled with the Braves, where he ultimately became one of baseball's most iconic figures. He was a consistent producer both at the plate and in the field, reaching the 300 mark in batting 14 times, 30 home runs 15 times, 90 RBIs 16 times, and captured 3 Gold Glove Awards en route to 25 All-Star Game selections. The thing about Hank Aaron is he had the home run record forever. And when Barry Bonds finally beat his record, it was still the case that Hank Aaron, to this day, holds several records that have not been beat. He remains baseball's all-time leader in RBIs, runs batted in, with 2,297, and total career bases 6,856. If each of his 755 home runs were removed from his statistical record, Aaron would still have 3,016 hits. It was shortly after Hank Aaron's record-breaking home run that Georgia Congressman Andrew Young declared, "Through his long career, Hank Aaron has been a model of dignity and quiet competence. He did not seek the adoration that is accorded some national athletic heroes, yet he has now earned it." He was elected to the Hall of Fame in 1982, and he passed away just January of 2 years ago. So happy birthday to the late Hank Aaron. Now happy birthday to somebody who is still with us. The Baron, the great Christopher Guest.
Oh, yes.
The Baron Haden-Guest. He's actually inherited a baronhood in England. I won't even start on Christopher Guest because you can't stop. Yes, he is a baron in England. He is an actor. He is a musician. Mm-hmm. He is a producer and screenwriter. Of course, we know him best as the great... Well, I'll save that. No spoilers here, but of course in The Princess Bride as well, Count Rugen, and all of those shows that he did with the repertory that he put together, the actors that he would work with over and over again, waiting for Huffman and Best in Show. And I've linked to the Wikipedia article because it's got a great section on reoccurring cast members. This repertory that he put together, working with Michael McKean and the other people that he just... A magnificent man, a magnificent life. And what I love about him is that although he did a parody of musicians, he was actually a musician. And, also born on this date in 1948, so also age 75, Nigel Tufnel. Mm-hmm. So yes. the British fictional heavy metal guitarist.
Well, no, he's real.
Of the band Spinal Tap.
Spinal Tap's real.
It's not fictional because after making this great movie, whatever you think of Rob Reiner's Politics, This Is Spinal Tap is a brilliant film. But they didn't stop there. They did this movie filled with these clever parody songs, but in true heavy metal style. The musicianship was hilarious, but it was also expertly done. And they actually played them. Nowadays, there are heavy metal musicians that don't even play on their own albums. Real musicians. They bring in studio musicians to do the hard parts. And people like Christopher Guest, the great Baron Christopher Guest. And Michael McKean, of course, his co-star in This Is Spinal Tap. They actually played their instruments. They actually wrote the songs and played the songs. And it gets better. They went on tour as Spinal Tap more than once, and years later did reunion tours. No, Christopher Guest, I didn't mean to go on so long, but you've just got to bow to this man who has lived this.
One more thing about Christopher Guest is that he is married to...
Yes, Jamie Lee Curtis.
There you go.
So obviously he's not one of these snobby Brits who won't have anything to do with American women. No, he has a great marriage. They've been married forever.
Since 1984.
You just got to love everything about this guy. So happy 75th birthday to Christopher Guest. That's enough birthdays. Real quick, because I've been itching to get to it, there are two holidays today. First of all, it's Happy Shower with a Friend Day.
Well, they do this in Japan, but they call them onsens, and they're not showers, they're baths.
And it sounds very sexy, but what if it's just a friend? Could be friends with benefits, but even still, the onsens aren't like that.
No. Well, the onsens, you go in and you're completely, you're just wearing air, and you're constantly looking up because you're trying to avert your eyes, right, and be polite.
Yes. So, yes, if you've got a friend, it is National Shower with a Friend Day, so, just... do what comes naturally.
Just call your friend
up. If you can hold that for me, please.
Sure.
It is also National, sorry for the clanking sounds, folks, but it is National Chocolate Fondue Day. Now, I thought it would be too much to get the whole fondue setup going, but, and I'm also, I love Hershey's syrup, so that's what I've got here with this bowl of bananas. Oh, there I go, right on my t-shirt. Amy, you, on the other hand, have hot fudge, because I know that's your preference.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
If you want to grab a fork there.
All right.
If you've got chocolate, whether you've got, fondue chocolate or chocolate syrup or hot fudge or just a chocolate bar you can melt down.
Bottoms up.
The calories don't count today. Mm-hmm. Oh, you've got the whipped cream there. Let me get a dabble of that. Did you know whipped cream only has 15 calories in 2 tablespoons?
Well, it really depends on how much you pour out of the can. Not pour, but you spray it.
That's true. Nobody actually measures a tablespoon of whipped cream. you got to guesstimate these things. I'm sorry to be eating during the show, but it's National Chocolate Fondue Day, and we take our holidays very seriously here. So if you need more of that, just say the word.
Jim says...
Now I've got chocolate syrup on my shirt. I need to go to National Shower with a Friend Day.
He says, clank away. And Petya says, if you grew up in Eastern Europe, you would remember going with friends to the bath.
There we go. Yeah, public baths, sure. Last year we were in London and we traveled. We left the city and went to Bath, which is the name of a city in England, where they have the original Roman bath still in place. Nobody uses it. It's now a tourist attraction, but it's beautiful to see.
Yeah, they discovered that there were some amoebas in it that were not friendly to human health.
Yeah, in theory that was an issue. Although, they used it for so long, it can't really have been that bad.
Yeah.
I think they just didn't want us jumping in.
They used it up until the Victorian times. So Victorians were there having a bath. Oh,
man. Any excuse to have chocolate and coffee. Oh, that's a beautiful thing. National Shower with a Friend Day also reminded me, do you remember, this is now a couple of years ago, we attended the Warrior Dash.
Yes.
If you've ever gone on one of these 5Ks that involve obstacle courses, climbing and climbing under things and crawling through mud and doing all the crazy stuff, the crawling through the mud is usually at the climax, at the end of it. You climb this mountain, you slide down the other side of the mountain into a pit full of water, and then you crawl out of the water through mud. And at the end of the day, and we're wearing shorts and t-shirts, we're not naked, but at the end of the day, they have showers, which are just made of PVC pipes, and it's a big area where everybody showers together. So National Shower with a Friend Day would be a great day to do that. In Michigan, it's a little bit chilly for that right now.
Yeah, just a bit nippy out there.
It is.
All right.
And that's it. Well, I do need to talk about what's worth seeing this week.
Well, first, let me just say, I just want to give another shout out. I've talked about this before on the show, but there's a really excellent history podcast, you could say, or biographical podcast called Mobituaries.
Mobituaries.
With Mo
highly
Rocca.
Recommended.
Yeah, highly recommended. Everything that he does is really, really fun. It's not just people that he commemorates the passing of, but it's last time, the last episode was about bananas, or a particular kind of banana that they ate in Victorian times that was really delicious. And they talked about, just different fruits like the pawpaw that you can still get in Michigan, seasonally. And just certain things that are just no longer available in grocery stores.
I only know about the pawpaw from Baloo the Bear in Disney's Jungle Book, singing about it.
Right.
I'm just catching up with the chat here, and there's some funny stuff going on there. Jim Ashley, in particular, doesn't happen to have a sweetie this Valentine's Day. He's thinking about cloning one. I still have to clone Grace. You can't go wrong with Grace Kelly. There's some serious genes there going on. And Jim does share that, speaking of Naked Lunch, that he hasn't read the book, but he's seen the film. Then, Jim, the film was based partially on the book Naked Lunch, but partially on Burroughs' life. Of course, Naked Lunch was based partially on Burroughs' life. And there's an incident in the film version which is taken from Burroughs' real life, where he played the William Tell, where William Tell is said to have, apocryphally, but have shot an arrow off a young boy's head, shot an apple off a young boy's head with an arrow. Burroughs tried this with his wife, except with a gun, and he missed, and she died. So, a horrific story. Burroughs reportedly went to Mexico to escape prosecution for that, or maybe he left Mexico and came to the States to escape, whatever he did. Again, the guy was on drugs 102% of his life. This is just a complete ne'er-do-well. In the movie, they recreate that incident as part of the plot, except it happens twice in the movie versus the book. So, yes. And Jim says, A well-made film, but extremely nightmarish. I never want to see it again. I've only read about it. I haven't seen it, and I don't want to see it once. So there you go. And Pettia points out, if you grew up in Eastern Europe, you would remember going with friends to the bath. Yes, public baths. Very cool. Very cool. Scott says crank it to 11, so he's obviously seen This Is Spinal Tap, or at least key scenes from it. And Chandler says saves water. Chandler would know about that, being an expert on plumbing, and
that's right.
hopefully an expert on saving water by showering with friends, too. Very,
during these times of inflation,
you got to do what you got to do.
To shower with friends.
Look, honey, I don't particularly want to shower with you. I don't mean to impose, but you got to save where you can. I don't know if anybody's going to buy that line. All right.
It sounds like we all need to be hosed down, is what that is.
Ooh. So, real quick, in the category of worth seeing or hearing this week, I did a show on Wednesday with James Valiant, and this was so much fun because we had Catherine Dickerson on. Mm-hmm. If you know Catherine Dickerson, she's a MSW, she's a master's in social work, she works with kids, but what she's doing now is she is teaching PET, or Parenthood Effectiveness Training. It is the best interview. You've got to watch this. Link is in the show notes if you haven't seen it yet. If you already know Catherine Dickerson, you've already seen the interview because you know how charming she is. If you haven't, go do that. It was great. On Thursday, I did a show called It's the End of the World as We Know It. Again.
Yes, very good show.
Thank you.
Actually, both of them were very, very good.
And
y'all should listen.
Well, I've got to admit, the Thursday show was a bit of a rerun. I had previously done that topic.
That's good.
And pretty much in that style in an earlier show, with you, Amy. Mm-hmm. It was pretty good the first time, too, but I thought it went well. If you haven't seen it, take a look at it. It's certainly how I celebrated Rand's Day. End of the world sounds pessimistic. Why would you celebrate Rand's Day that way? Listen to the show.
Well, actually, speaking of Rand's Day, what did we do for ourselves? Usually it's buying yourself something special. For me, actually, I was going to post, but then I completely forgot, and the day slipped away, but I took a picture of myself at the gym. So I've been doing a lot better. Yeah.
Well, what I did for Rand's Day, where Harry Binswanger recommends that you go out and buy yourself something, which you can do anytime, so it should be something you wouldn't normally buy, something extravagant. And I was tempted on Rand's Day to buy a new battery-powered speaker, a monitor, a stage monitor, the kind of thing you would use if you were doing a live performance. And it's not a speaker you point at the audience, it's one you point back at yourself so you can hear yourself. Because I own, it's the most amazing thing now, you have battery-powered PA speakers, large speakers that you can use for a small or medium-sized concert. Battery-powered, you just show up with this stuff. Why didn't I buy this thing? In fact, why didn't I buy anything for Rand's Day? It's because I realized, well, Amy, you already own a portable bass guitar amplifier that runs on batteries and is capable of doing full range sound, not just bass guitar. In other words, I realized on Rand's Day,
you already had it.
I already have everything.
Yes,
I own everything.
Yep.
I think of myself, those of you who know me personally, I think of myself as living very modestly, but especially when it comes to tech and gadgets, I can't buy myself anything anymore because I've already got some version of just about everything. So if you didn't celebrate Rand's Day yet, there's your excuse, there's your reason to do more than just have a chocolate fondue, but get yourself something to be good to yourself. If you're going to be good to anybody, you ought to be good to yourself. I don't know anybody who deserves it more than you do. Darn right.
Yes, Alex, or Equal to Reality in the chat on YouTube, he bought himself a particular chair. It was quite pricey. It was 450 pounds.
Yeah. He mentioned that on earlier in the week, too. That's very cool.
Although he hasn't received it yet. I asked him if it was comfortable. You got to report back to us.
He says it's a chair designed both for office work and gaming. Now, I don't know what a gaming chair is, but I do know there are special chairs, for example, for guitar players. And what stands out in chairs designed for guitar players is they either don't have armrests or they're very low because they get in the way of the lower bout of the guitar.
Yeah.
So I could totally see a gaming chair might have tweaks that make it work especially well for gaming. And either way, you certainly deserve that. Actually, I know he's had some success at work as far as promotion and pay lately. So I assume that all the more reason to be extravagantly good to yourself.
Yes.
So very cool right there. Excellent, excellent, excellent. I'm behind on the chat. Bringing it to Ocon, ? I assume you're talking about the PA system. We did that last time. If you attended our karaoke events, you saw our portable PA system, and the answer is probably yes, although we're still in the planning stages. We've got a couple of really, really big events before then.
Yeah, I'm not so sure if we're going to be doing that karaoke for Ocon.
There was a bit of a kerfluffle the last time.
Yeah, we had some rowdies, and so it may not happen.
We'll see. we will let folks know. But what a PA system? Why did I need a monitor? And the answer was because of an event that I was playing sound man for. That's right.
Yes.
This weekend, I got to play the role of sound guy, sound tech.
You are a professional sound tech.
I am. So I brought the PA system, but in the venue that I was setting up sound for, the speakers are pointing out to the audience. And in this particular case, there were dancers, and they couldn't hear the speakers as well because of the room, because of the kind of room we were in and where the speakers had to be.
Yes.
So I needed a monitor also pointed back at the dancers. Okay, what is this event with dancers?
Oh, what's this dancing about?
Amy, what is this event with dancers?
Well, this is my flamenco troupe that I'm part of.
Yes.
And we go out, we perform, and we actually get paid. So value for value, being all flamenco capitalist and everything. So I wasn't dancing. I may have mentioned on the show before, I'm not entirely sure, but I had a bit of a back injury that I'm getting better with, by the way, and I'm getting stronger and more stable and all that good stuff. So I haven't been dancing, which is really a bummer, but I went ahead and I emceed it. So Robert, he was the sound tech. I was the master of ceremonies. So I had some things to say. I introduced our group, Compañeros de Flamenco, to an audience that Robert and I, and all of us actually, everybody in our dance troupe thought, maybe there's going to be about 10 people who show up. No, actually, in this large conference room, this is not an auditorium, they set up a bunch of chairs, and we're like, we're not going to fill these, are we? No, I totally doubt it. Well, I'll tell you, the place was packed, and Robert and another gentleman who was working there had to actually create more rows of chairs, get more chairs out from the back.
Now, folks who are catching this on video, the pictures I'm putting up here, which I didn't organize, so it's a little tricky, but these are all pictures from the event. You can see that the room was completely full, and it was a good-sized room.
Yes. And here I am on my at my kind of podium, sort of stage riser that we were on. It wasn't quite a stage. It was more of like a portable stage, but it was a riser.
Now, Amy, you have been recovering from some challenges with your spine, so you weren't dancing, but you got up there anyway at the encore and danced.
So this is the first time. It was just so wonderful, guys. I just got to share this with the world. We got an encore. And that was the first time we've ever had an encore.
Yeah, this is not something where an encore is usually part of it.
It was such a love fest, and there were so many people who just loved what we were doing. And, I mean, just thrilled at what we were doing. And we were so delighted by the response from the audience. It was such a great audience. If you are a performer out there, you kind of know if you have, depending on the audience, your energy is going to lag behind a bit or get really, really pumped up. Well, ours was really pumped up. I think that the adrenaline kicked in. We got really empowered by the audience, and everybody performed wonderfully. Everything went off without a hitch, and everybody loved it. I mean, we got an encore after a Q&A session that lasted for a few minutes, in which one little girl asked if we did birthday parties. I said I'd have to talk to their parents.
Yeah, for enough money.
So, but anyway, this is flamenco dance. It's the national dance of Spain. It's basically southern Spain from Andalusia. And it's, if you know flamenco, it's a mix of different influences from Middle Eastern to Jewish to African to the Caribbean to, it's such a mix of from the gypsies who originated in India, that people conglomerated there in the south of Spain, and a lot of people who were kind of ousted from European society, who were a little different, and flamenco dance is still their dance. It's usually brought up in the context of families. Young girls and boys start doing flamenco dance at the age of 4 or 5, and the families get together. Some of them sing, and the singing in flamenco sounds more attuned to like Arabic singing. It's not European style singing. And then you've got guitarists, many guitarists, flamenco guitarists. Then you have the ladies who are standing or sitting, kind of doing the cheerleading, and they're doing what's called palmas. And that's what I was doing. I was cheering everybody on while they were dancing, and I was clapping my hands rhythmically. And it was a lot of fun. And then, of course, there's the dancers. So singers, dancers, guitarists, and people who are kind of cheering on with the clapping. So that is flamenco. That's what we did, and it was great. It was something that we didn't expect that much from, and we didn't know how it was going to go. One of the challenges that we had on this riser stage was that it was carpeted.
Yeah.
And if you know a little bit about flamenco, there's a lot of stomping involved. If you're on a hardwood floor, you're going to hear kind of the similar clicking like you'd hear in tap dancing. But you didn't get that. You just got kind of like a thunderous stomp on this carpeted riser. So we were a little bit bummed that didn't quite pan out the way we wanted it to. But really, we made the best of it, and the audience was loving it. It was a love fest. And after the encore, we had, a group of like 30 or 40 people, just rush the stage, ask for flyers, ask all these specific questions about flamenco. I did some demonstration with the castanets that this one lady, she had castanets at home and she wanted to know how to use them. So I showed her, and it was just delightful. So there you are. Sometimes you expect one thing and you get another, and it blows you out of, just completely knocks your socks off, totally blew me away, and it was the most delightful thing ever. So there's my story.
Yeah.
and then I do plan on, in the next performance that we have in May, to dance during that time. So I should be.
Did I mention it was standing room only? It was the funniest thing.
They turned people away and told them to stay, to be in the this little hallway. It was
Everybody wanted to be there.
It was absolutely. And did I mention that we got paid for it too? So it was such a win-win all the way around. And it was beautiful. It was delightful, and our flamenco troupe is very talented. And it's one of those things where none of us think that we're particularly talented, but we are, because everybody focuses too much on their mistakes. And I always tell the ladies that, including the instructor Michelle, you just go out there. If you make a mistake, you smile and you pretend that you meant to do it, and then you just get back in line.
Darn right.
And no one's going to notice, and no one's going to care. No one's going to know enough about flamenco to say that was not correct. So
it's an interesting thing about those kinds of performances is that depending on what you're doing and what the venue is and all, the audience is on your side.
Yes.
Even if they're a little bit rambunctious. I think that word came up in the chat. Even if you're not sure they're on your side, they're there to be entertained. They're there to have a good time. They're not going to care if they notice a mistake, and they're probably not even going to notice a mistake. I should become a jazz musician. Then, nobody notices when you play a wrong note. The whole trick is you do it again. You play it a second time, and they assume you meant to do it. So, yes, it was great fun. It was a great performance.
And yes, it was
triumph.
well promoted by the library itself. And I think, it's kind of the causal link to why we had so many people there was that I think during this time in Michigan in winter, people want to get out and see something different. And it was a free event to everybody, open to all. So it was great.
It was great. And there it is. There it
Ta-da! Is. Olay! And all that. But yeah. So there's my story.
Good.
I hope that might encourage you all to and I keep forgetting if I've said this last week or not, but my mantra for the year is do things half-assed, which means to me don't sweat the small stuff. Don't get so into the weeds that you're constantly worried about whatever it is. I have enough talent and enough skill and enough focus to go into whatever I'm doing and do it well. And so I'm confident about that, and I need to remind myself that I actually do have that confidence. So you actually might be a lot more skilled than you are thinking that you are. So go out and do something uncomfortable, daring, adventurous. See how you do. I bet you'll do better than you thought you would.
And you don't even have to be that skilled for it to be worth doing. That relates to the homework I'm going to share with y'all. I always tell you what my homework is for the week, in case you would like to do it or something like it yourself. I was feeling a bit of the winter blues earlier this week, and I caught myself. I was using the usual, psychology tricks, mental tricks, and there were things that I have to do, and I remind myself, well, there ain't nothing I have to do, but die someday. There is nothing that I absolutely have to do. Everything beyond keeping myself from starving to death is a get to do, not a have to do.
Yeah. I did actually think about that yesterday before the performance. Is like, well, yeah, I get to do this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that is a powerful reminder. But there's an even more powerful truth, one which this bit of blues I was having had obscured from me. It's not just a choice between what you have to do and what you get to do. There's really three levels. The first level perspective is, life is happening to me. And there are these things I have to do, and everything's happening to me.
Yeah.
The second level perspective, you realize, no, because I'm choosing to be here. I'm choosing to be alive. Life is happening for me, not to me. And there are things I get to do, not things I have to do. Life is happening for me, and there are things I get to do. And that's kind of where I was at. And it wasn't quite getting me where I needed to go. And then I remembered, oh, wait a minute. Go back to that idea of there is a mountain. Talk to that in a minute. The third level. Life is happening not to me, not for me. Life is happening with me. And once again, there are things I have to do, but they are there for me because I've chosen them. I've chosen this path. I've chosen these values. I've chosen these goals. I have chosen this purpose. So yeah, there are things I have to do. There are obligations and burdens and all this stuff, but only because, oh yeah, it's all because of this, what I want. I love the Donovan song, There Is a Mountain. I've shared this once before. First, there is a mountain, then there is no mountain, then there is. The explanation's in the show notes. So we've talked about this before. It's that idea that, and this came from Zen masters and Eastern philosophy, and I don't remember the name of the person who wrote about it when I read about it, but several people have. You look out there and you see mountains, and you see rivers, and you see trees, and you see people, and you see animals, and everything is out there. And it just looks like what it is. And then you get more knowledge, you get more information, and you find out, well, mountains, on an atomic level, they're mostly air. And in terms of challenges, people either beat them or they destroy people. And in terms of your life, they actually don't matter, they don't affect you. And if you get enough distance, if you get on an airplane or simply climb another mountain and look over, the mountain is no larger than anything else. It's nothing. It disappears. There is no mountain. You gain this greater wisdom that says, well, I thought there was a mountain, but now I see beyond that. I see larger than that. If it sounds like hooey, think about philosophical concepts. When people think, for example, they grow up and they think, I go to a store and I buy stuff and I trade with people and I engage in production and trade. But then eventually I find out, oh, wait, I am pressured to do these things, and I have to go out and get a job, and I have to pay money for things, when somebody might have offered it to me voluntarily, now I have to buy everything. I need everything. My parents used to take care of me. Now I have all these burdens, all these obligations. Or philosophical concepts, complex philosophical topics. Things like the current transsexual phenomenon, where we're trying to figure out, well, transsexuals are coming out. They're not hiding anymore. But that's now running into all sorts of problems. How do we handle the bathrooms? Okay, that one was easy enough, but how do we handle sports? Well, that one's a little bit tougher, but how do we handle minors, people under 18? And then eventually what happens is you go out. Okay, now you understand mountains at a level but where you can now transcend them. You can conquer them. You can realize you don't need to worry. But the amazing thing is you eventually gather enough wisdom that you look out and you see the mountain again. And you see it with all that other knowledge. Now you have the deeper understanding. Now you really see the mountain. And it's enormously simple. And you think, well, I got that in the first place. Except when everybody throws that other stuff at you, forget everybody. When you throw it yourself, that deeper understanding that makes you question, oh, well, maybe capitalism isn't necessarily a virtuous system. Or maybe solid objects really are mostly empty space. You've heard these arguments before. I know I can already hear a lot of you out there saying, oh, no, I never fall for that kind of thing. I would ask you to question that premise. But yes, once you do get it, and this is what philosophy does for you, you see the mountain again. You see capitalism as an unknown ideal. You see transsexuality as a difficult problem that some people are going through. Some people are picking up by osmosis and aren't even transsexual, but they feel it. And I don't mean feeling like a whim of the moment. How many of our friends say, oh, your feelings aren't facts? We're not talking about those kind of feelings. We're talking about real dysmorphia here, real identification. And then you get to that third level where you can now take all of that new information, all of that stuff that made it seem like, oh, there's more going on here than meets the eye, because it really is there. And you can step back and say, oh, that's what's going on. So this third level, having, for example, in my case, having obligations because you've embraced the specific values for which those requirements are part of the package. That's the reappearance of the mountain. Reminding myself, oh yeah, I do have a bunch of have-to-dos. But they are because I have chosen those purposes. I probably could explain it better, but when it hit me again this week, when I remembered or rather saw this deeper level, It was like there was this deeper truth that's, kind of been smiling at me from behind a corner, waiting for me to notice it. First there is a mountain, then there is no mountain, then there is. So this goes out to all the Ayn Rand fans out there. I want to see more of these third-level objectivists. So many of us, when we grew up, we saw the ordinary world, the mundane world, the muggle world. And we thought people are capable of so much. Things should be better. And some of us found politics, which promised at least the possibility of a better world, except it delivered only conflict. And then we discovered philosophy more broadly. And if we were lucky, we discovered objectivism. And we understood things at a much deeper level. Why the world isn't what it could be. And all of the ways in which the wrong ideas have caused people to fall short. The irrationality and the emotionalism and the worship of faith, the rejection of reason, the collectivism, the nihilism, the Attilas and the witch doctors. And some of us concluded that, well, sure, there's some decent people out there. And maybe there's a few heroes, a few atlases. But we concluded that, well, by and large, we live in a world full of Ellsworth Tuohys and Robert Stadlers and Floyd Ferrises. And a clown college of Balfour Eubanks and Lancelot Clokeys and Lois Cooks and Wesley Mouches. First, there is a mountain, the real ordinary world. And then there is no mountain. We see the deeper truths which suggest the real world, a world of simplicity, solidity, stability, is an illusion. The mountains are crumbling, the seas are boiling, and nothing is as it should be. And what I want is to see more of us reach the third level, the return of the mountain. Because the whole point of philosophy was to see the mountain, to see the world, to see reality. And yes, that includes seeing the threats, the dangers, all the disvalues out there, and seeing what can be done about those threats, where action is possible. But the evil, the bad, the negative, that was never the point. We never had to take any of it seriously, did we? No, we never had to.
So, about these problems, social problems and such, and, whether that's people who are trans, who are struggling, who who have these situations, they don't exactly know what to do about them, and some people think that doing the solutions lie in the worst thing that you can possibly do, whether that's forcing other people to conform to this new social status or whatever it is. A lot of these things, like the bathroom situation, that has been resolved. And that's because people see that there is a need for unisex bathrooms now. And there actually, a lot of places have had unisex bathrooms all this time. And so there you are, there is a solution. So, and a lot of these solutions are coming out of businesses who want the business of every person, who want to be open to anybody who wants to come through their door, who wants to purchase, something or have an experience or eat a meal or whatever it is. And those things, they resolve themselves. So oftentimes I find a lot of these things are way blown up out of proportion at first because people forget what really is going to happen.
Yes.
Is that people in general, people of goodwill, people who want to see other people succeed, people who are in business.
Which is 90% of the people out there, the people who aren't on the fringe.
You know, and people who want to see people getting along and having commonalities and seeing each other's values, you know, real values. So, yeah, I mean, those sorts of situations resolve themselves oftentimes because people are value-oriented. They may not have a philosophy that really explicitly explains what that actually means. They may touch on it here and there. They may find some self-help quotes that will, you know, help them kind of concretize it. But, yeah, of course, they're not going to have objectivism that will get them through these tough issues in a rational way and give them the optimism to say, this is going to end up resolving itself eventually. I mean, even like wokeism and CRT and all of that, it's going to eventually solve itself. And I think it is actually at this point, it's solving itself. I think that that the values are going to rise, and people are going to see this not as something that is cutting down anybody, but that it's something that we can all rally around no matter what our background is. You know, whether that's, you know, any particular, you know, excellent example of Black culture, for instance, you know, whether that's, you know, music and Motown and jazz and, you know, Dixieland and, you know, all of these Delta blues, whatever it is, music, art, dance, performance, gospel music, for goodness sake, you know, you know, and food, the kinds of food, you know, and soul food, and Jamaican food, Caribbean food. I mean, there's so many values out there that people are going to say, this is what it's about. It's not about tearing down anybody to somehow raise you up. It's about celebrating the actual things in reality, the cultural values that you have. And people will rally around that. And this whole notion of fighting racism with racism is going to fall out. That's my prediction about CTR and woke, by the way.
Yeah, well, obviously I agree with you. Anybody who heard my Thursday show knows that I agree with you. And if you didn't hear that show again,
yeah,
I
love what you say about cultural values, or however you want to call it, in terms of cultural or racial or values of heritage. They're just sprinkles.
They're all good
on top of the Sunday of life.
It's all good. It's all good. You know, I usually listen to myself after my shows. I always say it's one of my few strengths as a podcaster. I might not be the best podcaster out there, but one thing I do is listen to my own stuff and critique myself. And if I do say so myself, Thursdays was a show worth listening to. You know, I read a brief quote from Atlas Shrugged. I think of another quote from the Romantic Manifesto. In life, one ignores the unimportant. In art, one omits it. And Ayn Rand was making a point about art, that you don't include, and it's interesting, we received a question on one of the earlier shows, why do people criticize Ayn Rand? Why do people criticize her characters, suggest that she was simplistic, etc., etc.? And one of the answers was that Ayn Rand doesn't put in the accidental. She doesn't include things that are ugly unless they're part of the plot, but she doesn't include, you know, the character going through mental issues unless it's part of the plot. She doesn't have people damaged for the sake of them being damaged just to make it realistic. And she said in the Romantic Manifesto, in life, one ignores the unimportant. In art, one omits it. And she was making a point about art. But she's also making an important point about life. In life, one ignores the unimportant. Now, ignoring something is not the same as evading it. Sometimes there are things you need to do about negatives, about disvalues, about threats. And we do. We have alarms. And we have security cameras. And we have fences. And we have firearms. And we have insurance. And martial arts and self-defense and armies and polices. Organizations like the Ayn Rand Institute and the Institute for Justice and Cato and many others. And we have all this for a reason. So that we can apply some reasonable, rational amount of our resources to protecting ourselves from threats and fighting against the bad. And then get on with the project of living our own best lives, of creating and producing and celebrating and dancing and singing and making movies and making love and seeing and climbing mountains. So my Post-it note for the week. I always like to wrap up with a Post-it note. A note that I will put up to myself to remind myself of something I already know, usually, but need to remember, need to remind myself. And so I'll put this either above my computer, in my office space, or on my bathroom mirror, wherever I know I'm going to need to see it. My Post-it note of the week. My Post-it note of the week is that whole phrase. First there is a mountain, then there is no mountain, then there is. You see, I put this on my 3x3, my big Post-it notes. I love big Post-it notes. Actually, I think these might be 4x4. What is the size of that? Anyway, on a regular size Post-it note, I also have one that just says, then there is, because I know the expression so well. And I know the Donovan song so well. Link to that in the show notes too. It's a charming, super hippy-dippy, but very charming song. First there is a mountain, then there is no mountain, then there is. There's also a link to the Wikipedia article, which gives you the source for that. The whichever Zen master originally was known for having said that. But that is my Post-it note for the week. I will have that up this week to remind me, oh yeah, there was that third level that I have not been as consistently engaged with as I should be, that will help me to knock down some of the challenges. My homework for the week, and I always like to give myself a homework assignment, you are welcome to share this with me as well, is to share more. And I've done this before, and I'm due to do it again. Whether that's, and I haven't decided yet, but you will see on my social media network account, Facebook, feed, Twitter, whatever it turns out to be, you will see more from me. I've posted music, it's usually playing cover songs with a guitar or a piano or a mandolin or something. But there may also be readings, because there's so much good poetry to read and so many other good things to read. Narendra, for example, reading one of his posts, came back up again in my feeds. I'd forgotten about that one for a bit, and that came out well. So whether it is readings, performing, music, I want to start sharing more. I'd love to see you all do that too. Whether you're singing, playing, performing, reading, or just speaking your mind, get it out there. Share more. As Amy said, it doesn't have to be perfect, because first of all, most people won't notice that it wasn't perfect, and even if they do, we are on your side. We want to see your stuff. And in that regard, I'll also be sharing the flamenco performances from this weekend. Hopefully I can get a clip of Amy in the encore. I don't know why, but my recording stopped before the encore.
Oh, okay.
But the folks in Bloomfield Township, the Bloomfield Community Television program, did record the event, and they're going to be broadcasting it on BCTV, Bloomfield Community Television.
Oh, and quick shout out to Jim. Thank you for the book. Thank you very much. And I appreciate it.
Excellent. I've got some real shout outs I've got to get out there. We got new t-shirts from Jonathan Honig and Capitalist Pig.
Yeah.
Those were cool. I wore mine to the gym today, and I will share the photographs that Amy took of me at the gym wearing the new Capitalist Pig t-shirts. Thank you for that, Jonathan Honig. I've got a bunch of thank yous. I've got to make a list and make sure we get all of y'all all the props that you so richly deserve. In fact, show wrap. Thank you for joining us. If you have suggestions for future episodes of 5 Minutes with Robert and Amy Nasir, you know what to do. Share them in the chat. Share them on Facebook in the 5 Minutes with Robert and Amy Nasir Facebook group. If you want to support the show, send us stuff. People have been sending us stuff. It's so cool. But also go to robertnasir.com and you will find links to our Patreon and PayPal accounts where you could send us a monthly contribution of $2, $10, $200, whatever it is. It will be appreciated and it will help us continue to do this work that we so deeply love to do. And that's it. That's all I got. We ran a little long. I think it's more than 5 minutes. So with that, I'm going to wish you all a great Sunday evening, Sunday afternoon, Sunday all hours of the morning, depending on where you are in the world. It's so hard to know what time of day. Just good day. Good Sunday to you all. Thank you for joining us.
Yes, arigato gozaimasu.
Yes.
And konbanwa.
We will be touring Japan. I want to meet up with our Japanese fans. Our fans, well, they're not all Japanese, but they're in Japan. I want to meet up with anybody in Japan. We'll see if we can coordinate our schedules. And by then, Amy will know the language. I probably won't know anything more than domo arigato, Mr. Roboto. So I'm going to count on Amy for everything, as I often do when we travel. Thank you, Amy.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Robert.
You're the best.
Arigato gozaimasu.
And all of you out there, you are the best. Thank you for joining us. As always, we wish you every success, all of the success you so richly deserve. We wish you happiness. Complicated word. We wish you flourishing, an easy word. And as always, and especially with Valentine's Day peeking at us from around the corner, we wish you love.